Let me ask you, if your wife were to describe how you love her, what would she say? Would she say you're present, patient, or intentional? Or would she say you're distracted, stressed, or worse yet, just going through the motions? Guys, loving your wife isn't just a nice idea. It's one of the greatest callings of a man. God decide God decide God designed marriage as a reflection of his love for the church. And he calls us to love our wives in the same way Christ loved us, sacrificially, intentionally, and unconditionally.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to the New Path, New You podcast. My name is Ron Cole. Thank you so much for joining me. This is part 2 of our connection series. It's built for connection, something we're doing all of February, and it's our relationship series. So if you missed last week's, that's the foundation of the rest of the month. So make sure you go back and listen to that before you get too far into this episode. But this episode, we're talking about leading with love, your relationship with your spouse. And if you don't have a spouse, that's fine. You can put these examples into other relationships as well. So we're going to talk about, what does it mean to lead with love? Well, love is sacrificial. Ephesians 5:25 tells us, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Jesus didn't love with words alone. He gave his life. That's the model that we're supposed to follow. This doesn't mean you have to die physically. It does mean dying to selfishness, pride, and distraction. And I know I'm speaking to the choir on this one. Distraction's hard. I know, especially cell phones. Cell phone was my weakness, where I hated when my wife would say, I need you to put down your phone, or get off the phone. I wish the phone wasn't around. That used to trigger me and set me off because I was annoyed that it bothered her. However, when I took a step back, I was giving my phone more time than I was giving my wife. And that was a huge conviction that I had to go through. Love is a daily decision. It's not a feeling. It's a choice that you make every day. You might not feel like loving your wife today. Well, guess what? You get to do that. Love isn't just about emotions. It's about action. Feelings come and go, but real love is a daily decision to show up, serve, and honor your wife. 1 Corinthians 13:4-7 defines love as patient, kind, not self-seeking. That is a tall order, but that's what we're called to do. I know for me, it's really easy for me to want my desires first, or what I want out of things first, or expect her to do something for me. What I've found is the more that I do things for her, that's her love language, that fills her cup, she will naturally want to do those things back for me. And I don't do it to get anything in return. I do it because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what God has called me to do, is love my wife well. And then love takes intentional effort. Now, this was something also I had to learn. You wouldn't expect a fire to stay lit without tending to it. Marriage is the same way. If you're not intentional, you're drifting apart. Think about when you first pursued your wife. You listened, you planned dates, you showed up, you showed affection. Are you still doing those things today? Let's talk about how we can put those 3 things into action. Let's get into some practical ways that you can lead your marriage with love. And I just wanted to kind of give just a couple actionable steps that I found has worked really well just in my marriage, that hopefully if you guys can use it, steal it, do it. One is just communicate with intention. One of the biggest gaps in marriage is communication. A lot of us think we're good at it. I was one of those guys, but are we really listening? James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So ask yourself, when was the last time you asked your wife how she's really doing and listened without fixing it? Man, I remember on this journey, that was something that, was hard because I wanted to fix it. My wife wanted someone to talk to. She didn't need someone to fix it all the time. So she just needed someone to listen. And I remember the easiest way for me to kind of get over this whole I need to fix it mentality or attitude or drive was I would just ask her. As she started talking, I would just say really quick, is this something that you need me to fix or you just want to kind of talk about it? And that was just an easy way for her to know that, hey, I want to listen or I want to fix, but please just give me some guidance on that. And that was a night and day difference for us. Another one is just serve her daily. I've talked about love languages a lot. Jesus led by serving, and as husbands, we're supposed to be doing the same thing. That could be as simple as taking something off of her plate, write her a note, or being fully present when she talks. The little things really do matter. Folding laundry, doing dishes, giving her a night off with the kids. Those things, even though it doesn't make sense to me personally, was really letting Rachel know that I loved her and that I saw everything she was doing. I saw the struggle and I wanted to be a part of the team and help. The other thing is prioritize quality time. Life gets busy, but you can't afford to let your wife take the back seat. And this was something else that I was doing. And I didn't even realize it because I was busy. I was making a living. I was doing everything that I, quote unquote, thought I should have been doing except for dating my wife. Schedule those date nights. Unplug from your phone and be intentional about connecting with your wife. If you've gotten stuck into a routine, shake things up. Do something new together. Take a class, go on a trip, or just have a deep conversation without distractions. Rachel and I, last week, we went duck pin bowling. We've never done that. I didn't even know if she would enjoy doing it, but it was something that we've never done, and it was kind of a little adventure. And it was on our date night. We went duck pin bowling, and then we went for sushi. Now, Rachel loves sushi, so I knew even if duck pin bowling was a flop, the sushi was good, and she was going to be happy. But you know what? We had so much fun duck pin bowling, and she smoked me. I'm not gonna probably admit that to a lot of people, but I'll admit it to you. She did smoke me. Then the last thing, which is actually the first, is cover your wife in prayer. One of the greatest things you could do as a husband is pray for your wife. Pray over her dreams, her struggles, and most importantly, pray over your marriage. I was literally just sharing this with Rachel at lunch today on how often I pray for protection over our marriage over the last few years. And it's daily. And I don't want to ever get to a point where I don't pray for that and feel like, oh, quote unquote, I've arrived and I don't have to pray for that because I feel that's how the enemy will sneak in. I'm just going to continue to pray for that. So when was the last time you put your hand on her shoulder and prayed for her out loud? That's spiritual leadership. That's what you're called to do. So I know there's struggles out there, and we have to figure out how to overcome that, guys. And obstacle number one is I'm too busy. You know what? I get that. Work, kids, responsibilities pile up. But guys, if your marriage isn't a priority, everything else suffers. Love is built in the small daily moments. And this was something that I know way too well. You must prioritize in the right order. God, your marriage, your kids, everything else. if you would just trust God enough to do that, He will work miracles in your life. I promise you. Obstacle 2, we're in a rough season. Man, you know what? Every marriage has hard seasons. The key is staying committed and fighting for each other, not against each other. You guys are on the same team. Do not fight to win with your spouse. Fight to win together. You're not fighting to win the battle against your spouse. And that was me also. I would have arguments, and my arguments, I would fight to win the argument, not to resolve the issue. And then seek wise counsel if you need it. Whether it's a mentor, a pastor, a counselor, strong men ask for help, period. Obstacle number 3, this I hear a lot. She's the one that needs to change. Man, too often we focus on our wife isn't doing something instead of what can we be doing? Be the man God called you to be. And watch how that impacts your marriage. Watch how that impacts your children. Again, put your priorities in order, and I promise you your life will change. So here's my challenge for you for this week. Be intentional about serving your wife in one meaningful way every day. Doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be intentional. So here's the question to reflect on. What is one area in your marriage where you, not your wife, where you need to be more intentional? Is it after the kids are in bed, you're on the phone, you're playing on the phone, or you're playing games on the TV, or whatever it is, and you're not spending intentional time with your wife? How can you be more intentional this week? So if today's episode hit home, don't just listen to it, apply it. And if you want to grow as a husband, head over to newpathnewyou.com and connect with a community of men walking this out together. Next week, we're going to be talking about a relationship that challenges a lot of us, and that is fatherhood. How do we lead, guide, and pour into our kids in a way that builds legacy? That's what we're going to be talking about, so you don't want to miss it. Until next week, I can't wait to see how your marriage changes and how you start leading with love. And I promise you everything will change. So guys, take that intentional step on a new path for a new you. See you next week.